The sniper guarding the canyon crazily killed the climbing monsters. However, the monsters' assault was too fierce. They wanted to invade the human world. Fortunately, the sniper had installed several traps below. Not only that, there were multiple automatic machine guns and turrets surrounding the area, firing wildly. The scene was filled with flames and smoke. Countless monsters perished in the hail of bullets, but soon, new monsters charged forward again. But why were there so many mutated monsters in the canyon? A few months ago, a girl named Katie woke up in a cave. She reached for a notebook beside her, using a cross to record the date of the day. Looking at the densely crossed out marks in the notebook, we could know she had been living in the cave for a long time. Just then, a loud roar of an airplane suddenly came from outside. Hearing the sound, Katie immediately looked out the window. Without saying a word, she quickly set up her sniper rifle. Before long, the airplane in the distance landed smoothly. The bodyguards around were on high alert, their eyes fixed on the important figure making a grand entrance. Unexpectedly, Katie had been lying in wait for half a month, but the operation wrapped up in just a few seconds. Reddy, who was asleep, was startled awake. He gasped for breath, his emotions difficult to calm. He glanced at the time. It was just past 4 in the morning. Reddy drove to the seaside. He sat there motionless, remaining seated for several hours. At this moment, someone sent him a message. After seeing the message, Reddy drove to the U.S. Marine Corps base. This was the place where Reddy had previously served. However, he had been discharged for over 4 years. The person who called him here was a mysterious female agent. The female agent first asked Reddy if he had a partner or any bad habits. After confirming that Reddy had none, she then asked if his achievements as a sniper were real. Reddy responded negatively upon hearing this.
81 probable kills. Are those numbers accurate?
Then, the woman asked Reddy if he had a job now. Reddy replied that he was just a vagrant. The woman was so surprised because such a talented sniper couldn't even find a job now. She felt very regretful. Reddy explained that it was due to the assessment of his psychologist. They believed his mental state was not suitable for missions anymore. The woman said she could help find a reason for Reddy to pick up his gun and return to duty. After completing her mission, Katie arrived at the cemetery. She finally met her father. Her father asked if she had been spotted by the Belarusian drones. Fortunately, a father is always a daughter's support. He told Katie not to worry. He would handle everything. However, Katie couldn't quite feel happy because the politician she killed had 4 young children. She felt guilty in her heart that she had caused the children to lose their father. Seeing his daughter like this, her father comforted her. He said that politicians became rich by using white phosphorus bombs and landmines. But he didn't realize that these things caused many children's deaths, so he got what he deserved. Despite her father's comfort, Katie still couldn't get over that mental hurdle. She often suffered from severe insomnia for many days in a row. This time she received a new mission. It was likely that she would disappear for a year or even longer. Meanwhile, Reddy woke up on the helicopter. The soldiers saw he was awake and immediately brought a box to collect his personal belongings. He informed him that ahead was a no-fly zone. They could only take him this far. Then the soldier left directly. Reddy took his parachute and jumped down. Afterward, he crossed turbulent rivers and scaled steep cliffs. After walking for 47 hours, he finally arrived at a deep canyon. The contact was excited to see Reddy and came over to greet him. After all, Reddy was the only living person he had seen in a year. His excitement had another reason, because with Reddy's arrival, he could finally leave. At this point, Reddy inquired about the situation there. The other party said that there was everything here, but mobile phones couldn't be used. Especially, contact with the opposite bank was prohibited. Of course, this statement was somewhat redundant, because no one could actually reach the opposite bank. Soon, the two arrived at their place of residence. The man told Reddy that the tasks here were very simple. Just patrol the area at regular intervals each day. Every few hundred meters outside, there was a turret. They needed to be filled and checked for ammunition on time. The man then went on to mention a lot of other things. Although it sounded troublesome, in reality, if nothing happened for a long time, even an 80-year-old could manage these tasks. Even in an emergency, one just had to press the button and then run as fast as they could. Reddy felt a bit confused hearing this. He asked if his duty was to prevent people from entering the canyon.
You need to stop what's in the gorge from coming out.
Deep in the canyon, a roar echoed. The man said he wasn't sure what was down there. However, a long time ago, over 2,000 elite cavalry entered it. They originally intended to eliminate whatever was inside, but in the end, not a single one came out alive. The next day, the man arrived at the designated location and boarded the helicopter to pick him up. However, the next second, the military was so ruthlessly heartless. What secrets were hidden in this deep canyon? In the days that followed, Reddy lived a monotonous life every day. Of course, the story had to change a bit at this point. One day, Reddy curiously picked up the binoculars to look across the canyon. He unexpectedly saw the curvy Katie. Katie seemed to sense that someone was watching her. Reddy hurriedly hid inside the house. That night, the sky poured with rain. Reddy was already mentally fragile. The thunder scared him, and he grabbed his gun to check his surroundings. After confirming that everything was fine, he finally put the gun down. Now, he couldn't sleep either. He picked up the binoculars again to observe the other side. Surprisingly, he saw Katie, who was also suffering from insomnia. After that, both sides lived peacefully for another month. These days were truly boring. With nothing else going on, one could go crazy. So Katie wrote a message and then fired a shot into the sky. It was a signal for the other side to look through the binoculars. At first, Reddy held firm to his principles. He wrote that they couldn't communicate. But in front of a beautiful woman, principles suddenly didn't matter. Moreover, both were sharpshooters, so the conversation quickly became more engaging. But soon they noticed a problem, because it seemed that something in the canyon was about to climb up. Watching those ugly monsters try to climb up, Reddy hurriedly detonated the traps nearby. The violent explosion blew several monsters to pieces. But still, countless monsters continued to climb up. Katie on the other side immediately drew her gun. With Katie's help, the monsters quickly ceased their movements. The area instantly fell into silence. At this moment, Katie cautiously looked down, then she began to back away. Seeing the ugly and ferocious monsters in front of her, Katie immediately pulled out her handgun and began firing wildly. She emptied the magazine and even kicked to finish off the enemy. However, more monsters continued to climb up from below. Reddy on the other side quickly helped kill the monsters. Seeing Katie injured by the explosion, Reddy finally remembered to switch to a heavy assault rifle. Many monsters were pushed back immediately. Katie regained her composure and immediately got up to help. Because the monsters triggered the automatic shooting system, Katie was finally able to take a break for a while. This continued for several hours. The horde of monsters temporarily ceased their attack. Katie managed to bandage her wounds despite the pain. The next day, Reddy repaired the guardrail and replaced his weapon and ammunition. After changing everything, he picked up the binoculars to check the other side and found Katie silently protecting him. Reddy felt warm inside. Thus, they lived peacefully for another month. To cheer Katie up, Reddy decorated a Christmas tree with colorful lights. This deeply touched Katie, who had always been lonely and strong. Their relationship grew closer and closer. Afterward, they even came up with new games. They played checkers from a distance and used tin as drums. One day, Katie told Reddy that she felt very lonely. She also said she really wanted to meet him. Reddy pondered over it all night. The next day, he hurriedly took out a rocket launcher. Katie saw him launch a shell toward her direction. Startled, she rushed into the house to grab a fire extinguisher. After confirming the crisis was averted, she tied the rope to a tree. Then she ran to check Reddy's situation with the binoculars. He slid over using a zip line. Upon arriving, he even brought out some flowers he had prepared. The two sat together, drinking tea and chatting. Katie learned that Reddy was one of the top 5 snipers in the world, and she was very happy to talk to him. After that, they entered a passionate phase of their relationship. However, Reddy did not forget to guard his territory. He moved back and forth daily as if clocking in for work. One day, he was preparing to return to his own territory. Suddenly, the rope snapped and Reddy fell into the abyss. Katie quickly grabbed her weapon and jumped down. After successfully deploying her parachute, she went to search for Reddy. Meanwhile, Reddy, hanging from the tree, fell into a coma. A giant centipede approached him. Though Reddy killed the centipede, he fell to the ground in the process. However, he soon noticed something was wrong. For some reason, tentacles below were gripping him. Reddy wanted to struggle, but long fangs locked him down. In a critical moment, Katie arrived with her gun and successfully rescued Reddy. Now, the important thing was to quickly find that rope, then climb up using the rope. At that moment, a large amount of murky yellow smoke suddenly engulfed the area. Then the two were assaulted violently. Seeing the enemy rush toward Katie, Reddy immediately went to rescue her. But the enemy was so fast that he could barely see them. One monster knocked Katie to the ground. However, the monster didn't realize that Katie wasn't easy to mess with. She quickly regained control and wildly shot monsters with her gun. At this moment, Reddy was fighting another monster. The monster intended to trample him with its horse. After killing both monsters, Katie nervously said that things were bad, because the electric climbing clip she had was missing. It must have fallen into the river when she jumped down. The canyon was unfathomably deep. It was impossible to climb up by human strength alone. Reddy suggested that they could follow the river and surely find a way out of the canyon. Just then, Katie noticed something was wrong, because the monsters were actually wearing military uniforms. Reddy observed that they were from the 1940s style. These people were likely the cavalry, sent to exterminate the monsters. Logically, these people should have been dead long ago. But why did they turn into monsters? Afterward, the two navigated through the canyon. They found eerie white bones everywhere. Even more bizarre was that there were many houses below. However, they looked like they had been through a severe earthquake. Just as they were puzzled about what had happened here, suddenly strange noises came from all around. They quickly hid in a nearby house. After hearing the sounds outside disappear, they began to explore inside the house. But they discovered that these people had died by suicide. The two couldn't understand what could be so terrifying that it felt worse than death. At that moment, a swallowing sound came from the ceiling. The two were attacked by small monsters. Seeing these quick-moving mutated spiders, they could only kill them, but there were simply too many of them. The two were preparing to fight while retreating. The door was smashed open by a monster. The scene instantly fell into chaos. Facing attacks from both front and back, the two clearly struggled to hold their ground. In no time, they were pinned to the ground, unable to move. Reddy still wanted to go help, but he was in dire straits and couldn't afford to be distracted. However, they didn't want to die here, so they all sought opportunities to escape temporarily. Then Katie shouted that she needed to blow a hole in the wall. The two desperately fled the house, but being exposed outside was not a good situation. At this time, they discovered a door embedded in the cliff wall nearby. Now they had no choice. They could only hide inside and close the door. Then they carefully began to explore inside. The walls around them were covered in slime. There were also many bizarrely intertwined tree roots. Moreover, there were several corpses inside as well. As they walked further in, they found long-dried bloodstains everywhere on the floor. This place resembled an experimental base. But what exactly had happened to turn the canyon into this state? Fortunately, the lighting system inside surprisingly worked. They even found a videotape. The two immediately projected it with a projector. It turned out that in 1946, Eastern and Western countries cooperated to establish a top-secret alliance. Other researchers successfully developed nuclear bombs, and their team created biological weapons. A strong earthquake caught everyone off guard. Many experimental devices were destroyed, including the biological weapons. The leaked toxins quickly spread throughout the canyon, merging with all living things, and these creatures all changed in succession within 5 days. Fortunately, the location of the experimental base was very secretive. The impact they caused was minimized. Having learned the ins and outs of the situation, Katie asked why the government didn't just send bombers, then fill the canyon and solve the problem. Reddy replied that perhaps the research had not stopped. At this point, he successfully powered on a dusty computer. Reddy discovered that they were not working for the military, but for an organization called Black Lake. This organization specialized in genetic research and occasionally sent drones to extract genetic samples from the monsters. They aimed to create super soldiers, so they were called to guard the canyon, to prevent the monsters from escaping, and to ensure that the secret here did not leak out. Just then, Reddy was surprised that they had programmed the canyon to self-destruct, but one had to escape 4.2 kilometers away to survive. Reddy knew that there was no way for them to escape. He decided to go out and fight the monsters, but when it was time to act, he was dumbfounded because Katie's equipment bag was missing. This meant that the monsters had intelligence. They even knew how to distract them and steal their ammunition. Katie was very angry about this. She found the equipment bag not far from the door outside. Katie threw a smoke grenade outside. Anyway, it was hard to see clearly, so it was better if no one could see clearly. Soon, the two safely reached the equipment bag. As Katie was about to pick up the bag, she was yanked away. She saw it was a monster dragging her away on horseback. Katie pulled out her gun and shot wildly. Meanwhile, Reddy desperately chased from behind. They chased all the way to the monster's lair. At this point, Katie was captured and hung up. She hurled a bunch of trash talk, cursing the monster in front of her. The monster attempted to rush over to teach her a lesson. Katie struggled with the monster, but this monster was too powerful. She was quickly knocked to the ground. Just as the monster prepared to come over, hanging her up again, Katie suddenly launched a surprise attack, stabbing the monster's foot. Then she swiftly cut off the monster's snake head with her knife. The monster, furious, drew a knife. The monster in berserk mode had overwhelming combat power, but Katie was not to be outdone. She grabbed a torch and engaged in combat with it. Taking the opportunity, she thrust the fire directly into the monster's face. Fire quickly erupted on the monster's body. It tried to drag Katie down with it. It was knocked to the ground. At this moment, Reddy rushed over and fired another shot. After checking on Katie's condition, he crouched down to examine the monster on the ground. When he saw the name on the monster's clothing, Reddy stated that this was the first soldier to guard the canyon, and this was a missile base. He said this and led Katie to leave. But along the way, they were shocked because it now looked more like a hatching pool. Inside were creatures that were still mutating, but this was the only way out. The two cautiously navigated through it. Katie bumped into a nearby corpse. Then she got stuck to something. Reddy immediately turned back to save her. Then he ran desperately toward the exit, but didn't know many mutated creatures had already awakened. Just as Reddy was about to escape, he was ensnared by tentacles that pulled him down to the ground. Katie pulled desperately, but it was futile. More tentacles rushed toward them from behind. The situation was extremely critical. Katie fired a shell at the monster. The violent explosion caused the monster to roar. Afterward, the two finally made it outside and found the base's maintenance area. Upon entering, they were stunned. There were actually several jeeps parked inside. Reddy said it works the same way as the electric climbing clips. Katie immediately started one of the vehicles and sped outside. Soon they saw the fallen rope. Reddy hurriedly tied the rope to the car. Just then, the monsters heard the noise and rushed over. Katie grabbed her gun and shot wildly, but the bullets were depleting too quickly. In no time, her magazine was emptied. Reddy quickly took over and continued shooting. The two worked together, finally killed the approaching monsters. Then they quickly got in the car and started climbing the cliff, and so they held out until dawn. They thought that there shouldn't be any more surprises. The monsters climbed up the rope. At this point, Katie and Reddy had no bullets left in their guns. Reddy took out the 8-meter-long knife. Katie also found an axe. The two fought fiercely with the monsters for a long time, but the number of monsters not only didn't decrease, but instead increased. Suddenly, a monster lunged at Reddy and knocked him down. Fortunately, Reddy reacted quickly and grabbed a steel pipe in time. That didn't make all day and night in vain. However, the crisis was far from over. They were about to reach the top of the cliff. Reddy stabbed the fuel tank with his knife. Then he threw down a burning stick. After that, the two worked together to cut the rope. They successfully returned to the top. Late at night, the two sat down for a heart-to-heart talk. Reddy asked what they would do if they got infected. Katie stated that she would make the right choice. Reddy also said he would definitely choose to end his own life. But now there was another dilemma. He had to report the situation via radio the next day. But now that the rope was cut, there was no way to return.
Well, I guess the Russians stock a better armory.
Unexpectedly, Katie's country even had this in their arsenal. Then the topic shifted to why they were chosen for the canyon. Reddy smiled bitterly and said that she had no relatives or reasons, and happened to have good marksmanship. So if he disappeared, no one would care. In fact, Reddy had known about this situation before he arrived, but now he had someone to care about. That person was Katie. Katie heard that they could elope. There was a place in France that was perfect for hiding away, but Reddy's sense of responsibility kicked in. He felt that if he ran away, others who were in the dark would be sent in his place. And if a monster got out, the consequences would be unimaginable. So after discussing, they decided to destroy the canyon. Next, they just needed to hold out for 5 days. If they were still fine on the 6th day, it would mean they hadn't been infected. Reddy returned to his territory to report the situation. The female agent suddenly asked if he knew that. The computer studying drones had been activated. Reddy understood what was happening in his heart, but he could only play dumb. Unexpectedly, the female agent confessed about the super soldier project. After all, even if Reddy completed his mission, he couldn't return home alive. Then, she asked if there was any movement on the other side. She guessed that someone on the other side activated the computer, so she demanded that they must shoot the other side right now. Reddy pretended to agree on the surface, but he didn't know. The female agent already knew he was lying, because she had watched the surveillance from the lab. She informed the soldiers that Reddy had betrayed them. She ordered them to immediately execute Reddy. The female agent felt extremely regretful. She never expected that Reddy would start a romance while on a mission. Reddy and Katie were still immersed in the sweetness of their love. Suddenly, a helicopter flew in from above. The two immediately realized something was wrong and took off running. The female agent quickly deployed drones. Once the drones identified their target, they launched an attack. During their escape, Reddy accidentally tripped and fell. He drew his gun and successfully shot down a drone, then continuing to run. They had already run 3.8 kilometers. As long as they could hold on a bit longer, they would be able to destroy the entire canyon. After reaching a suitable spot, Reddy and Katie found an excellent vantage point to set up their rifles. They directly destroyed all the gun emplacements. At that moment, the female agent discovered that the self-destruct program had been activated. She couldn't care less about that now. She called her team and rushed into the helicopter. Then the female agent shouted, "Forget about the altitude. The most important thing now is to create distance." Just after she said that, the entire canyon erupted in flames. At this moment, the helicopter was racing against time, but the shock wave from the explosion was too powerful. The helicopter lost control and spun uncontrollably. Eventually, it crashed into the cliff and exploded into pieces. Reddy, with an injured leg, was also running desperately. But he was running too slowly. He could see that he was about to be caught in the explosion. He could only make a desperate leap into the river. Katie waited for Reddy for many days, but she never saw him appear. Ultimately, she went to France, a place where she could settle down. There, she opened the letter Reddy had left her. The letter basically said that if he didn't escape, Katie should live her life well. A few months later, Katie was working in a restaurant. Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice. She immediately turned around. To her great surprise, Reddy had actually made it out alive. Then, the two began to live a happy life together. The film ends here. The overall pacing of the movie was particularly comfortable. The slow parts were told in a leisurely manner. The intense and exciting parts picked up the pace, and the climactic moments didn't just rush by. The thrilling gunfight and monster fights were also excellent. Moreover, the cinematography was beautifully shot. The isolated and desolate canyon, two lonely souls gazing at each other from afar. Eventually, they developed feelings for each other. The scene, where the male lead fell to the bottom of the canyon, was very touching. Unexpectedly, the female lead jumped down to save him without hesitation. Then they saved each other. Upon learning the truth, the male and female leads resolutely chose to save other humans. This spirit of self-sacrifice elevated the film's theme to a new height. They even firmly stated that once infected, they would definitely end their own lives. This sense of responsibility and mission showed the audience the brilliance and greatness of humanity. Fortunately, the film's ending was a happy one. It was a warm end to this journey filled with danger and challenges, and put a warm period at the end. Among them, the female lead, Anya Taylor-Joy, was striking. Her sweet yet cool makeup and stylish outfits, combined with her crisp and decisive fighting moves, embodied a beautiful and fierce image perfectly. This gave the character a unique charm. The performance of the female agent, Sigourney Weaver, was impeccable. Although the passage of time has left its mark on her, she still stood tall and exuded grace. Her powerful aura was breathtaking. Her superb acting made the original simple and violent villain have a different kind of deterrent. However, it is a pity that the character's own setup was too thin. She was purely evil and lacked a reasonable motive. Her screen time was also pitifully limited, which caused the actress's outstanding performance was not fully showed. The film also had other shortcomings. For example, after the male and female leads fell to the bottom of the canyon, the monsters inside were surprisingly few. There were even fewer than the monsters climbing up the cliff. This was simply too unreasonable. If you enjoy my channel, please click to subscribe to my channel. Your support is the greatest encouragement for me.